Welcome everybody to a Soap Hub Fireside. Thaao has been kind enough to join us, and he's going to be interviewed by Michael Maloney, our West Coast editor. And then at the end, you can all ask questions. There is a thing at the bottom of the screen that says reactions. And if you press on that, you'll see raise hand. So if you want to get in the queue during the evening, then we'll call on you. So without further ado, thank you so much. And take it away, Michael.
Oh, yeah, that's better.
Hey, how are you? It's so great to see you.
Hello, Michael. I see you dressed for the occasion. I was waiting for some black tie or something.
You know, I do wear a sports coat and tie to many events, but in this summer heat, but you are getting Ralph Lauren.
Oh, okay.
So,
You know, I was going to make myself I thought, well, maybe I'll make a martini or something just to celebrate our long friendship. And I thought I made a Greek coffee instead.
absolutely. Well, I have let me see if I can get this in camera, my Peacock water bottle.
Oh, yes. I've never used it.
It's sturdy, hopefully like the streaming service itself.
Oh.
I have to start by, well, first thanking you for taking the time today. And secondly, tell me about that background with those paintings. I'm captivated. What are they?
This is a painting I commissioned in the 80s when there was a whole situation going on desecrating the temples of Tibet by the Chinese. And so my friend Enrique Senisolva, who's an artist from Spain who lives there now, I said, I'd like a triptych. And I wanted one of those, you fold over. Mm-hmm. So instead, he did it like this. And I think there's a kind of sadness to the painting as much as I love the way he interpreted it. Because, you look closely, there's men and women being very nostalgic about what they had, what their life was like in the past before the invasion of the Chinese. And so, so he did this, and he also did, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. He also did that trip. I can't kind of get it, but that one, that's a huge one. That's St. George and the Dragon, which is my icon since I was a kid. But he's a fantastic painter. He's one of the greats in Spain. So I have known him for 40 years. And so he made that in 3 months. And then I commissioned another one. So I have 4, but I gave my brother one of his paintings. Generous that spirit that I am. I said to him on the phone, I'm sending you a painting. And he goes to me, oh, what's the painting? I said, well, it's called The Procession of Life. And he said, well, what's it worth? That was what came out of his mouth. And I said, I mentioned the amount of money. He got so thrown. So I took it back this past Christmas and gave it to he and his wife for Christmas.
That's very generous of you.
Well, I think art's very important to remind us, that people who do things well can inspire us. And so Enrique, when I watched him paint, when he lived here in Beverly Hills, I used to watch him paint. And would you know it? What inspired him while he was painting and he kept company was Days of Our Lives. That's how I met him. He'd watch Days of Our Lives and his favorite characters. And so that some of the paintings, some of the canvases have phone numbers on them and also my name on them underneath. So if they ever x-rayed the paintings, they'd see a lot of messages and phone numbers, nothing pornographic, but yes.
That's terrific. And I think there are hundreds of thousands, if not more, of stories about people coming from all different walks of life and yet having a connection to these shows, and how one relationship on the show another is going to particularly speak to them or more. Did we lose you? I only see me.
Yeah, we might be having some technical difficulties.
Or he might
I sense the work of Count DiMera.
You might be right.
I don't know if that got many smiles. I can only see the first page. Yes, I see a couple of, yeah, he made a funny.
Here he is.
He's coming. Yep.
You know, I wrote a critique about an actor. Oh, okay. And he unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm just very suspicious, and I think you've been replaced by Andre, or not.
Son of a, you know what? Anyway, so what we were saying.
Talking about how important the shows are and how viewers will identify or gravitate maybe towards one or two more characters or relationships, and then they'll just kind of become a lifelong devotee of the character and the storylines. And even though new writers may come in, they remain faithful and they enjoy seeing through lines. One thing that I really liked that they've done this year on Days is they kind of rejuvenated the DiMera family. I mean, that living room was standing room only at one point, not too long ago, with Kristen and Megan and EJ and pretty much all of Stefano's surviving heirs. It was kind of nice to see, and especially with the portrait of Joe / Stefano hanging over the fireplace. How important do you feel that portrait is to have in scenes?
I'm the wrong person to ask now, because there are a lot of things you just said I'm not in agreement with.
Okay. Tell me
about what you think. Well, because the DiMeras, Joe and I started the DiMera family, and so
yes.
This is 40 odd years. I just think we've taken away from the identity of who we were. And you know, I'm a traditional person. I'm sort of, but you know, we were ethnic. We had a contrast with the Hortons. We had contrast with the Bradys, and that's changed.
Yeah.
So it's not, you know, when I see Joe, because I saw a psychic recently, and Joe came in, and the psychic said out loud, really loud, "What the effing is happened to my family?" You know. Yeah. And when you started something from the beginning, and then you see, you know, it's lasted this long for reasons. I mean, it's got, you know, there are wonderful characters, those who have joined and come and gone, but I don't see the differentiation now with the characters of other families. I don't see that we had, that made us darker and diabolical. And, you know, that's how we created it, Joe and I, all through the years. And that's what gave it gravitas.
Well, of course, you have to have a viable threat to characters, or else the audience will not remain as invested and fearful for their, I mean, you have to think that someone's going to like rub out one of your loved ones if you cross them. And that's what, you know, certainly we all lived in fear of Stefano and Tony and Andre for many years.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they were classic. Those years, I mean, especially the golden years, which were the 80s.
Did you and Miranda overlap on the first go around?
No, you know, there's the situation, you know, people don't know what's going on really. We just see the result as a show.
Right.
They can only, you know, where, you know, soaps and all that have lost a big audience over the years. And so there's something that's disappeared. And what happened when she came on, my God, it was kind of wonderful because it brought back all those memories. But they can only afford to have 10 actors on a show a day.
Yeah.
And so that presents a problem, which means that when my brother's wedding that I had initiated and that I was not there for. So they've got other stories to tell, contract players and that, but
Right.
so the show has changed. It's when you've been doing something for that long, and you've been part of why it survived, this family that I've been part of, because we worked hard. It wasn't, we just learned our
Sure.
lines. I mean, it took a lot of training and a lot of patience and ideas of costumes and traveling overseas and coming back with that knowledge that incorporated within your character to give it that kind of a gravitas. It wasn't
Right.
just something, that was loose and shallow. These were deep felt characters. And the problems were deep. And so therefore the battles were deep. And so, even though I've died a lot.
I've lost count.
Yeah, well, I think it's around 7 or 8, but
Right.
still, you come back, but you still because the audience loves these characters.
Well,
And-
exactly. And I think, and I'm not surprised that every time they dip into the well to tell current story, that they go back to that very specific golden age time between, say, 1980 to 1985, when the show was, college kids were changing their class schedules to make sure they could watch Days or another favorite show. And I know what you mean about the number of people in an episode. There was, I think it's on YouTube, but there was a real famous scene where one of Felice's final scenes where Renee told off the whole town, and the whole town was there. And today, I'm not sure they could afford something like that.
No, they couldn't. You don't see scenes anymore with abundance of people, characters, where it's very limiting. But when I did see my long lost sister, I think I should have been part of that story because of who I was and who she was, but it didn't go there. And so, you start to, I've never lost interest because it's the way we were brought up professionally. You
Of
have
course.
a cake that you've got to responsible in creating and making it as passionate as possible, and also giving the writers ideas when you're interpreting something off the page that they didn't think about. There was a scene that I had with Lauren where she was, which she threw champagne in my face, and they wanted me to throw the champagne back in her face, and I refused to do that because I felt that men don't do that. I mean, not that kind of family.
Right.
To me, it would weaken. And so when we did it, I know the producer questioned why we weren't going to do that. And I said, well, instead, I'll just kiss her passionately, which she didn't want. And then she slapped me. And so, and then it brought a grin to my face. And I'll never forget this. An extra came up to me and said, I just want to thank you, shake your hand. I want to thank you for the way you treated that woman. So, you just don't do something. You have to be responsible, really, especially for the times.
Right.
Times, I've always been pro-women because of the way I was raised in Australia with the Greek women suffered, with the men being in one room and the women in the other doing all the work while they sat on their asses and just smoked their cigarettes and were having their beers. So I always felt that women were undervalued. And so when I saw that, I thought, no, I'd rather show some passion and surprise than doing the obvious, which is to do that.
Right. No, I think that was a very smart decision, and I'm glad that it made an impact. We're obviously going through the strike right now with writers and actors. And I remember in 1988, when there was a writer's strike going on, that networks looked to scripts that had already been written and were all set to go and wouldn't need any changes. And I believe that's how we got to have Mission Impossible on the air here. Do you recall
Right.
that?
Yes, yeah. I remember it was September of 1988.
Yes.
And so I had to test twice for that because I thought my look was distracting, they thought, to the character. But so I went as an old man the next day and they didn't recognize me. But anyway, I got the part, and it was Anthony Paglia who was my final competition. But we did go to Australia. And what I loved about that is, there's many that you can't always go home, with success. So this was a good way of going back to Australia and telling my family, who thought when I left my sisters behind, because they have to get married first. They thought, oh, we've lost him. And, they said terrible things about me in the gossip. But I thought to myself, I will never go back until I win and say that I made the right decision. So Days certainly helped, but Mission was the big show, going home to Australia. And that was a wonderful time for me.
It ultimately matters what you feel from within, I have found, but what was their reaction to Mission Impossible and seeing your success?
Well, the fact that I was on a lot on game shows, my face, who is that and what has he done? Those questionnaires that they get on game shows. I think for the first time, my father saw me as he put his arms out to hug me and called me in Greek, he's Levendi, which means he's warrior. That shifted a bad relationship into something real promising. And we're supposed to go beyond the parents. And so I eventually sent them over six times to Europe because we grew up poor. So when you start from the beginning, and you have the success, it's an arc that when you can look back and say, you can see clearly how the decisions you made along the way brought you to this particular time. And so I overcame a lot of things that I left behind that were very difficult because I had a childhood that was not particularly promising because I had other dreams and I didn't know what they were. I had no mentors. So it wasn't until I went to New York and I met some extraordinary people. I was very blessed in my 20s, and what they told me I still use today. And so the inspiration to cook, the inspiration to write, the inspiration to make sure that when you finish the job, you do it well. No matter whether they're not being nice to you or they kill you off, whatever, you must always walk because you have done the job as well as possible. And let's face it, in serials, new writers come along, they have different ideas. They want to, bring somebody else in because that's what they find that more attractive. And I'm sure our present writer feels that, they have their choices. But also at the same time, we're using the younger actors because they're less expensive, and 10 actors a day doesn't give them a lot of choices. So they've got a hard job on their hands.
Everyone's being challenged right now. It is very difficult.
Yes.
And I'm not sure what the answer is other than to just go in every day and give it 100%. Do I understand correctly that when your run at General Hospital was wrapping up, there was talk of keeping you on before Days of Our Lives came in and offered you a job?
Yes. Out of the 30 actors of that summer, I was the only one that they kept. And then Gloria Monty had said to me, we're bringing you back. And so she really, and then she was a producer who came to me one day and says, get off daytime. Your work is too good. Well, I never, that was the hardest work I've ever done, to go on to General Hospital during the golden, during the time of Elizabeth Taylor. How does one remember all those lines? It was not, my muscle memory was not that developed at the time, but after a while, as somebody said to me, one scene at a time. That's how you learn it, one scene at a time. But that was a great time. That was an interesting time. And then of course I left and went to Days, but I just got an invitation to go to General Hospital's party that's coming up on the 28th.
Good.
And so I thought,
oh, the past cast event. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you going to go?
Yeah, why not? I mean,
I
it's
think you should.
that's been part of my history. That's what gave me, that's what elevated me, I think, and when I joined daytime, I was on a real run from New York with films and theater, and then coming out here and doing theater. And then the strike came, and the only
Right.
thing open was the soaps. And that kind of changed my life in a way. I wonder what would have happened if we didn't have that strike. So now we have a strike again, it's major. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of career changes. I'm now doing this podcast, but I've been dealing with this for 20 years. This is not something that just happened overnight. This was something I've been building for quite a long time.
Now, tell me about your podcast, The Lost Treasures. I love the name of it. How did you come up with the idea for it?
Well, I had a writing partner called Sherry Anderson, who was the head writer for Days 2.
Sure.
Both of us very interested in history, and I was always interested in Troy and Mycenae, where the Trojan War started. So we went to Troy together. I went through, I got permission from the Minister of Culture, and I went through 60,000 documents in 2 weeks. I got permission to go into the house of the archaeologist Ulrich Schliemann, who found, and the treasures were so extraordinary that, there's nothing more exciting to me is that digging in the earth and you find gold or you find jewelry that has not been touched in thousands of years. That to me is a great stimulation. And so I've been to Egypt 14 times, and that also stirred me up. And so we thought, well, why don't we write this story and see where it goes? Well, what's nice is I just finished the script of Schliemann, brought it up to date. And so the podcast really comes in 4 stages. The first stage is a modern man going through ancient territory and in the footsteps of Ulrich Schliemann, and how he found the gold of Troy. And he was inspired as a young man by having taken the Iliad and the Odyssey, two of Homer, who was one of the great ancient poets, and said that it was a map to finding Troy. And so I did the same thing. And so the third podcast is that particular journey, sitting at the edge of those ruins and imagining the Trojan War taking place. And then the second one is the curse that took place, and how he found the treasures of Agamemnon of that particular time, which was 1200 BC. And so I went through all of that. I finished that as the second. And then the third, I was very fortunate last year. I found out that they're making these incredible discoveries about Ulysses. And also they're making a movie of it, but a movie of the life of Ulysses coming back from Troy.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a letter to a scholar and also explorer called Crawshaw. And I said to him that I was very interested in sharing what they've discovered about Ulysses. And so he invited me, a real gentleman, and just like the English can be. And so I went over to Kefalonia last year, and I went on a trek with him up and down the mountain. And then we were suddenly in a ridge. And I looked up and he said, "Why are you so curious?" I said, "Because this is the ridge where the original guy called Bittlestone, who is his boss, had said that there's something here physically that's not right." And what they discovered was in 480 AD, a major earthquake hit that area because it sits on one of the worst earthquake zones in the world. And that mountain came down. And what was 2 islands in the west of Greece, when the mountain came down and collapsed, and these 2 islands became one, and then the tsunami came and lifted the island up over 2 feet. And there I was standing, and it was so calm. And so I thought to myself, I would like to go and swim in the waters where Ulysses came home. And so this is the third one. This is about me discovering with this wonderful scholar and explorer, Crawshaw, and the results of what they're finding today that's going to change history. And the fourth one is, why did I write this podcast? I was very interested in Alexander the Great. There've been 114 tries to find his lost tomb.
Mhm.
Except now they believe it's somewhere in the Mediterranean, because Alexandria also had a lot of earthquakes. And they think the tomb of Alexander sunk at least 12 feet under that water. And so when I went in the Ulrich Schliemann, I followed his footsteps there, and I went to this mosque where he believed that Alexander the Great's, that his coffin was under there. And so I went in and I gave the man $20 because that always gives you favors. And so I gave him $20 and I went in and I said to him, as I looked out, and I said, "What's that hole?" He said, "Oh, the hole is because while we were scrubbing the floors, the whole thing collapsed." And so he said, "Would you like to see what's beneath?" So within 10 seconds, I climbed down from 21st century Alexandria, and I was now walking in 1st century Alexandria. So as I was walking underneath, and suddenly there's all these tombs, and he wouldn't let me go too much into the depths of it because he was afraid it could collapse. But I thought, isn't that interesting? A modern man going through and walking through ancient history. And so that's what the idea came of what I wanted to do with this podcast, because we don't do enough history. People don't, I was taught by great people who believed and taught me history of the theater, history of film, history of the countries we came from, history of cuisine. And today, a lot of people don't cook, don't know much about clothing or fashion, don't read books. They read, a lot of people just read headlines and give their opinions on that. So I've gone deep into this conversation and what I wrote and discovered. And because I believe that there are so many stories to tell, that not everything about treasures is about gold or jewels.
I've been on many websites where I read the comments, and it's clear that the poster has read the headline, but not necessarily the article. How does it inform you, and what is the sensation when you are actually traveling to these places that may be accessible on the internet and or virtual or whatever? But what's it like? How does it inform you to actually be there, where what you've studied it actually took place?
It's the difference between, if I put it in simple terms, between a recipe and tasting it.
Mm-hmm.
If I showed you a recipe and you say, "Oh, that looks interesting," but if I let you taste it, you will experience the whole picture. So for me, I did it because, soaps, after a while, what kept me going is that I was able to afford to take the journeys that I had said to myself so many years before. Someone said, "Why do you want to become an actor?" I said, "Because I want to make enough money to take these journeys." And they said, "Actors don't make money." I said, "Well, I think I'm going to make some money." And so that's what I did. That's what I invested, because, your education, because when we go to schools, the curriculum and all that, we're being told what to study and what to learn.
Right.
Itself, what you came into this world to do is a much different scale. And so who are you? By going into other cultures, you find out that you can go beyond yourself and see how others live, how others taste, how their belief system, what is their cultures. That's why I get very upset when people talk about immigration and not understanding the plight of immigrants. Yes, we all should go by the law, but there are sometimes, because of what's happened to other countries at war, these people, are living in dangerous territories. Their lives are threatened. And so I think, it's very important. Traveling is the best education an individual can have.
We have a column here at SoPub called Travel Tuesday, and more than a few actors have said that after reading, the most educational thing a person can do for themselves is travel and do those things that you said, seeing how other cultures live, seeing how they eat. And you cover a lot of this in your memoir, Places, The Journey of My Days, My Lives. I love that title. And I actually love the book. I love the
Oh, thank you.
layout, the suppleness, the weight of it, the photos in it. Online books are great on digital, but there's something about holding a book in your hand and feeling the weight and the texture and the font.
Turning
It's all
the page. Turning the
turning the
page.
page. It's all carefully chosen to create an experience.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself from doing your memoir?
Well, I didn't think much of myself when I first came to America. I was a very insecure kid. Plus, I had only a few $100s in my pocket, so I had to start from scratch. What was my self-worth, and how you find out is what seeds you plant when you're in your 20s and what comes out of that. And I found what were the things that interested me the most in life that I couldn't do before, that were not available. So I always loved art because of history. Those who came before us and what they contributed. I loved food, so I needed to understand cuisine. I loved fashion because then I learned how to dress my characters and then being able to walk in the outfit that I chose, because it gives you a different walk when you choose your character's outfit. Your voice, everything changes. To me, that's the last thing that you put on. But all this, I'm far enough advanced in age now where I can see the beginning and the end of that arc, because I'm kind of in my last renaissance. But what happens to you, and you're all so much younger, but what happens to you is that suddenly you see clearly the decades of where you achieve certain things. And
Right.
now you have gone as far as you can within yourself of what you learn, that you can stop being self-absorbed, self-serving, and you have a chance to look at somebody else and look at what they're doing, because they also have something to contribute. So all this is part of the big picture. In other words, I was taught a long time ago, we're all presented with a cake and we have a piece in it.
Right.
But as a whole, there's many elements that contribute to this cake.
I saw something, a meme on social media, and it's really stuck with me. It said that we're born with 2 lives, and the second one begins when we realize that we really only have one.
Thank you. Very good. That is very much about very succinct to what I was just trying to say.
There's a lot of unnecessary stuff out there on social, but I'm trying to follow more pages that have gems like that. And speaking of cooking, and I love the title, I've interviewed a lot of people and seen a lot of cookbooks over the years. Your title of yours, Seducing Celebrities One Meal at a Time, is very enticing. What is that book about, and how does it differ from other cookbooks?
I had a call from my manager at the time and said, I've got an offer for you to do a cookbook. Now, I don't look at cookbooks to do. I open my refrigerator and I go, okay, what's here and what are we going to make out of it?
Right.
Because what I loved about this, because it taught me during my lean years that I was going to go beyond a can of ravioli. And so I thought, what is food really to people? It's what does that do to people? Well, it seduces people in a way where when people come into my home, they will go, oh God, what is that? I love the way this smells. Or they'll say, oh my God, look at the ambiance in here. So it's a big picture you take in to present an evening. And that was always about, to me, seducing people. And you know what would happen? Because it had its stages and they were very clear and distinct, they sat around the table all evening, to the point where I had to say, time to go. Because it was 1 o'clock in the morning, but that it became the watering hole. So how do you seduce people into appreciating? Because what you do is you took the time to be selective. If you cook well, and you don't do it for your self-satisfaction, or you say, oh, I've got to cook tonight. No, you do it because you want to bring a group of people together, like they did in the old days, where they had these great conversations about theater and books and people and world leaders and history. And the conversations are so fabulous. And so as actors, to me, you become a storyteller. How do you become a storyteller? So all that becomes part of the picture of seducing people. And so because I cooked for a lot of celebrities, that's how the book came to seducing celebrities one meal at a time, because they didn't always come back.
I miss the time where people got dressed up for dinner and dressed up for interviews. But as I said, it's about 90s. So,
but you know, Michael, what you just said is so valid. It's like people ask you, oh, what shall I bring? I say, I don't know, bring cash. I mean, how am I supposed to answer that? You know, you bring because of what you feel, or you understand the person is inviting you for dinner. I mean, listen, even when I was 22 and I was broke in New York, one of my favorite stories was I didn't have any money to take to the hostess a bottle of wine or whatever. So I went along Park Avenue and they had all these tulips growing. So I cut 24 tulips and I wrapped them in newspaper. And when I went to the party and I presented to the hostess, she goes, oh my God, where did you find these beautiful flowers? I said, on Park Avenue. So, you know, it's tradition, you know, and manners, and people listen to a conversation. They don't butt in because they want to take over because their egos are being ignored, you know. So it's all part of the education, and but that's why I wrote that book. And you know, even when I had to have tea with Jacqueline Kennedy, and I was 21, just her disposition, her manners when she came into the art gallery that I was Chinese art, and she came the sculptures, and the way she came in with apologies that she didn't have an appointment, and then she was so wonderful. When I showed her the back gallery, which had the best collection of Southeast Asian sculpture, what did she think? What do you think she said? So tell me, who are you? Where are you from? And you're so young to be knowing all this. So what's your history? She wanted to know as well. So it wasn't just about me telling her about what we had in the gallery. She was interested in getting to know you. And I thought, oh, well, 3 months later, she married Onassis. So maybe she came in because she had a great in there. I don't know.
That must have been a very memorable encounter. And I know she worked as a book editor for a while. So I think that's that inquisitive nature that probably served her well. I do want to invite some of our guests to see if they have a question, but I cannot give up the mic just yet. I did want to ask you about the enduring relationship you have on screen and off with Leanne, and the sophistication and wit and style that Tony and Anna, or as Andre would say, Anna, bring to, I never forgot you telling me that, what you guys bring to the screen. And it's not always the case where both actors are available to be on the show at the same time. And I'm so glad that more often than not in recent years, you and Leanne have been on together. Can you describe the chemistry you two have, and the banter and the wit that isn't always present as much as we'd all like to see?
You know, what's interesting about that relationship is that she didn't want me to be her partner on the show in the beginning, because she thought I was probably arrogant and a bit scary, because I stared at people. You know, it's the way, just zeroing in on them. You know, but she was sweet. She was innocent. She was in her beginnings. But she was dressed well. What happened? Because she was supposed to be with John Delancey first, and that didn't work out. Then there was somebody else, and that didn't work out. And so they said, oh, we're going to put you with Thaao. And she said, what for? And so I had a challenge. And, you know, she has the most seductive lips. And I remember I would just look at those lips and it was, you know, and then that's how I got into her. I treated her like a lady. I treated her with respect. And to the point of where I get really frustrated with some things that they were doing, and she would say, "Oh, darling, no, it's okay, don't be upset. No, you're fine, you're fine." Well, you know, she taught me about perseverance, and she kind of tamed me in a way, and all that came together. And also, the operative word I would use would be trust.
Mhm.
And because of that, and so that when I dipped her in dancing or whatever, she knew that she was okay. But I mean, there was a time where I felt she was being rather kind of rude to me in a way as the character. And so when I did dip her, I dropped her on the floor. But, you know, that was part of the humor that came about, you know. And I also have that with Lauren. Those two women, to me, and we were out the other night together. So we have a great relationship that's outside the studio. And all that adds to it. And Leanne's always here for my dinners. Even though she was married for 18 years, it was ironic that her husband and I were born on the same day.
Ah, interesting.
So she always thought that was kind of interesting. And so, and also she's a very sweet, and she's a very special human. So,
Oh yeah. It's always great seeing you, especially together. I want to say for some reason, it's just kind of like the magic is there on screen and off. We do have Brandy here, and I'm going to read her question for her because I think she might be shy. Is there any story that you would like to see Tony become more involved in on the show? Either something that's going on or something you'd like to see him take on?
Well, I was supposed to be the head of the family. Yeah, I mean, that's just logical. I mean, it's, my God, I started this family and they've put other people instead. And then you wonder why, and then they're younger, and then you say, but you can't replace that with the history and what's there. You know, let's face it, we've been in people's homes for so long. And, you know, you always gave them something different, hopefully. And people always loved the DiMeras because they knew they're up to no good, or the way they would love differently than some of the others.
I think you are the only actor, I might be wrong on this, who has the distinction of having played both a Cassadine and a DiMera.
Yes. It's interesting because both of those
created,
very big storylines.
Both created by the same writer, Pat Falcon Smith, to my understanding.
Right. Yes.
Do we have any other questions? I see some hands raised. Ashley, do you want to help me with who we will go to first?
Sabine.
Teresa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Hello.
Well, it's more of a thank you for all the years that you played Tony. I started watching Days of Our Lives at 13 years old in 1981. I even wrote to you as a teenager, and I pulled out the picture that you signed for me. And my question to you is, how do you not age? Because you look exactly the same.
No. How do I not age? No. Listen, apart from getting to know yourself, part of that is understanding the kind of body you brought in and how you treat it well. So I would say that meditation, which I have been doing for many, many years, since my 20s, that lines me up to the point of where I sit still or lie still for 35, 40 minutes every morning.
Mm-hmm.
No matter where I am, I do my meditations. And what that does is it takes away all the angst. I mean, I wake up in the morning. You don't find me very often in a bad mood. It's usually from a phone call that somebody has said something to me that tried to disturb what I was doing. But I would think that, and also the way you perceive life, you know, the way you, because that kind of perception is what also helps you treat people accordingly. And, you know, I've had to learn at times that my tone of voice can sometimes cut. and someone says, "Is this Andre or Tony?" People always say, "Oh, here comes Andre," because they can hear from my tone. But that's probably why I eat well. I don't eat. Very rarely will I eat food from the outside, especially fast foods. I don't, because when you see what's, I mean,
Out there.
I cook pretty well, and why would I want to go out and eat somebody else's concoction that's so full of salt,
Mhm.
and preservatives, and in Chinese restaurants with MSG. It's all about how you treat yourself, and who you surround yourself with. I keep learning. It's people, in many ways, don't think of themselves as being ahead of the game. And when they see you winning, they want to kind of put a stop to that a little bit by the way they say and think and do things. They sabotage. So to me, it's very important that you reflect those people who are on the same plane. Otherwise, it's very easy to go down to a level that's, let's say, it's where a lot of people will dwell because they're full of angst and angry, and they don't want to get out. They enjoy being all that and putting people down. I like to be with people who are more evolved, and if I'm not with people, at least I can check myself. But my close friends are quite evolved. I've let go of some people recently for that reason, because I don't trust them. I found out, when you're reaching your 60s, you find out suddenly who they've become.
Mhm.
And it's not always good, because they didn't succeed. And the 60s is where it really hits hard, and they resent. Well, it's your choices, It's like people who cheat on taxes and so forth. Their social security is not as good later on. I say to them, don't cheat on your taxes. That's part of what you're saving for later on. And people don't. So be with winners.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything over the years. I love you, and I'm
Oh,
looking
thank
forward
you.
to reading
Thank
your
you,
book.
Cindy. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much, Teresa.
You're
And
welcome.
I think we have Marianne. Hey,
Oh
Marianne.
my God. Of all the people who would get on, you must have a secret pass. I can't hear you.
Hello?
There you are.
There you
There's
go.
Andre.
There I am.
How are you,
Yes.
Cindy?
Hi, Thaao.
Hi,
Very good.
Cindy.
Yes.
Is
Oh,
it-
I love your
you're okay.
shirt. First of all,
Oh, thank you. Thank
very
you.
nice. Yes. Can't wait for your first podcast. Okay. And you had mentioned that you have a lot of stories. There's so many more stories out there to tell.
Hmm.
So if you're going to work on your second podcast, I don't know if you are, but if you are, of all the journeys, did you have one in mind that you would like to do for your second podcast?
I told this story to Leanne. She said that should be your second podcast. And I like to do the French kings.
Okay.
And there's the title of one is The Last Dauphin, The Last Dauphin of France. And that was in 1793. And it's such a riddle and such a fascinating story. I read a book in 1900, it was published. And at the end of the book, the writer says, we will never know what happened to the last Dauphin, because he lost? Did he escape? Did he die in the tower? Well, it took till 2002 where they're able to do DNA. And so that story is absolutely fantastic. That's probably where I go. They may be, maybe it's a podcast for each different subjects. I certainly want to get into Egypt, and
Sure.
because it's happened. One of the things I wrote in the last podcast, the fourth one, is how they try to kidnap me by the pyramids at 1 o'clock in the morning. The way Hezbollah, when I was in southern Lebanon, grabbed me out of the car and threw me against the wall and thought I was an Israeli spy. There are stories like that I would like to talk about, because traveling is not just about, everything looks so beautiful. No, there are obstacles, and it's about your maturity and how you handle them.
Oh yes, you have many stories to tell. I always like the story about you took the path of the Holy Family. I always found that interesting.
Yes, the 2 weeks of where they escaped. They brought the Coptic religion into Egypt the Holy Family and the escape from Herod. That's a great story.
Great. Well, okay, so then you have a lot of work cut out for you then.
Well, as long as I have the listeners. So
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, and you can seduce me with a meal anytime, by the
oh,
way.
okay. All right.
Okay.
I promise I'll do that.
You promise? Okay. All right.
Thaao,
Talk to you
before-
later.
Bye-bye.
thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.
Uh-huh.
Thaao, before we bring our next question on, where can people hear the podcast?
The podcast is on all the main Spotify, Amazon, Apple. There's about 4 or 5 of them.
And it's The Lost Treasures.
Yeah, the Lost Treasures. Yes.
And
I think
also,
they put. Excuse me. What's nice about it? When my agent heard the first one, he said we need to put some special effects in there. So there's some really wonderful sound effects, and I just sent it to Crawshaw, who is the archaeologist scholar in Greece, and he just heard them, and so he was very pleased, and he liked the effects. So I'm glad that my agent did that.
and as far as your books go, Amazon, eBay, are there any other places?
No, on Amazon you can find them. The nice thing about the cookbook is, even though it was expensive, it's never lost its price. So that's always a good sign. It's got longevity.
Awesome. And I believe our next question is from Shelley.
I don't think Shelley, I think she
Shelley,
didn't have a camera on, so she wasn't able to do it. If you guys want to ask a question, you have to have your camera on. So Catherine, I don't think I can do you either, but I will go to, oh, you are on. Okay, great. Oh, fantastic.
Oh, hello.
Hi, how
How
are
are
you?
you?
I'm good. How
I'm
are you?
good. I'm good. Where are you calling from? Canada?
Yes, near Toronto.
Near Toronto. So
How
so
did you
thank you
know?
for coming. Huh?
How did you know?
Thank-
How did I know? Because we had in New Jersey this past April, we did a certain amount of fans came and joined the DiMeras, and Kat was one of them.
Nice.
She also writes lovely things about our characters, especially Anne and I. Really good stuff. She does it well.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you about that time you went to Egypt and you saw the pyramids of Giza at sunset and you saw black ghost-like figures emerge.
Oh, God, I
It's
forgot.
in your book Places.
Yes. I always, because I was, they attempted kidnapping me when I was 26. I always, from that moment on, I always made sure I was with a guide. And this particular guide called James, who's a very highly evolved Satan, who takes you into his place that's very holy, and he's got a lot of essential oils there, just like they used to use essential oils to heal people in ancient times. And he does a meditation on you, and then he rubs you with these essential oils. So after that, we decided, a group of us, with him, to go behind the pyramids and the Sphinx in Giza, and it was at 7 o'clock at night. And when we all got on camels, that I don't like them, they're really hard on your backside. But we took the camel, and he took us all the way around behind, where we passed the stables of all the animals they have, and then 40 what they call the Egyptian cowboys. They came with all this food on their horses, and they arrived, and they put down the food. We sat, we laughed, and then James, the man who was very evolved, he said, "I want to show you something." He looked at his clock. He says, "I want to show you something." So now it was really dusk, and the sun was setting by the Sphinx. So he took me to the barricade, and he said, "I want you to look at Cheops's pyramid, which was It was created in 2600 BC. And Cheops, that's the biggest pyramid of the three. There's Menkaure and there's, oh God, how did I forget that? Menkaure, anyway, so there's three. And he says, I want you to look at the pyramid and tell me what you see. So I'm staring and staring, there's nothing there. Staring and staring, 10 minutes go by. I said, don't take your eyes off of it. Suddenly, these black figures start to come out of the pyramid and float and come around the pyramid. And he said, don't say anything. And I watched these black figures, these ghosts that protect the pyramid, come out of it. And within 10 minutes, suddenly they just disappeared. And it wasn't something, it was an illusion or anything. It's what happens. So it was frightening in a bit because they were black, cloaked, so you couldn't really, all you knew they were figures. So they danced around, moved around, whatever they did. And that was that.
So did they come out all the time at sunset?
I don't know. I have no idea, because I went there in 2019 and I took my producer of Mission and his wife and we went around there. I never saw them again. So I'm not sure, but whether he got it psychically that it was going to happen, I don't know. But all I can say is, yeah, I mean, there are just things that happen in those places that which are kind of, they're a mystery. I mean, it's part
Now,
of
when
what-
you had your,
Go ahead.
sorry, when you had your meditation, you saw yourself in Egypt
Yes.
on a camel with a beard and a robe. And the healer told you that in a past life, you lived in Egypt.
And that was the first time I met James. I've seen him a number of times. After he rubbed me down in the oils, I went into my meditation. And then suddenly he was speaking to me and suddenly I saw myself on a camel with a beard and a keffiyeh. And I saw it was Luxor. And he said to me, you just went back into a past life. And which I was kind of shocked, but at the same time, you know, my heritage, my great-grandparents, Greeks, they came from Alexandria. So there is an Egyptian connection with me, but excuse me. No, it was a strange thing because I actually saw myself in a different way, and it wasn't until I kind of zeroed in the dream thought that I was able to realize it was me because I had this big beard on. And yeah, so that's why I've been to Egypt 14 times, and I'm going back next year. So something's calling me there.
And you're going to Greece next month
Yes.
for your
I'm going
nephew's wedding?
to nephew's wedding.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Kat. We've got to be able to let other people have their questions.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Catherine. Those were great talking points. I think we have Cheryl next, and then one after that. Cheryl? Oh, Cheryl.
A couple more.
That's great.
Hello.
You have to unmute yourself. You have
Unmute.
to-
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the darkness. I'm from Arizona, so in case you guys haven't heard, or maybe you have heard, we're now in day 22 of over 115-degree weather, and it's like, so I keep it dark to keep it cool. But anyway, I
You
want
look mysterious though.
Oh, do I? Well, I'm having a bad hair day. That's why I've got my hat on. It's like, but I want to thank you. I mean, I enjoyed watching you ever since the 70s. And Days of Our Lives and General Hospital, Mission Impossible. You're a great actor. I really get into your roles sometimes that you play. You brought me to tears a couple times, but my question is I know that there's some scenes like with Sammy Brady and all this stuff. Did that really make you feel uncomfortable? Because I could feel it through your through the screen. It seemed like.
Oh, you mean when I played Andre the Clown?
Yes.
I made her uncomfortable purposely.
Yes.
Because I don't think she was particularly crazy about me, which was
No.
fine. You can't win them all.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's one of those good divas. And but what I thought was when I was playing the clown, I thought, oh, how would you put a woman in a position where she would feel uncomfortable with you? And I wanted to do it for humor. And that's why I took, and because he was the clown and I could get away with it, I started to feel her around, her neck and close down to it. But I knew, there are boundaries, but I gave the feeling that I was going to go beyond that. And that made her really uncomfortable, which really gave me a thrill because I was in control and she wasn't. And it really made the performance better for both of us, actually. I enjoyed, Alison, I enjoyed working with her. Even though, she may have an attitude towards me sometimes, but still it works for the scene because we're not supposed to be friendly anyway. So why not use what's there?
That's true. Thank you so much. I mean, like I said, I love your acting and everything. So
Oh,
I'm
thank
going to
you.
go so other people can ask their questions. Have a
Okay.
great day.
Yes,
Stay
I'm sorry
safe.
about the heat. I know what that must be like.
Oh, it's awful. And
Oh,
my
it's
dog's
awful.
not too happy. My blue heeler is not happy. He's a runner, so he's like, oh, gotta keep him in.
Well, drink lots of water.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too, love.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Cheryl. I hope it gets better quickly for you. And I think next is Bernice, or no, it's Linda.
Yeah, I just have a quick question about when you were on General Hospital.
Yes.
One of the last times that we got to see your character, Obrecht had shot you, blown you up, strangled you, whatever, and you were totally dead. And somehow you emerged from being Greek to being an Englishman in Charles Shaughnessy. And I just wondered if you had any amusement to that, or if you had been offered to come back, and how you enjoyed working with Kathleen Gaddy.
Well,
That was one question.
yeah, but I'm trying to see, where do I start it? I loved very much. From day one, when she came in, she was very welcoming. I only did General Hospital for 3 months during the Cassadines. And so coming back, it was a different kind of, different studio, different directors, different actors. How do you kind of fit in? It's not always easy because everybody's moving as fast as possible. So there's no time for small favors. But when she shot me, and don't forget the head writer at that time was Ron Calavati.
Oh.
And so of course he's killing me, which he did with Andre. And I'm thinking, what have I done with these people? That they always want to kill me off or do something to me that puts a period to me. When I was lying down there, I remember the executive producer that I had a lovely relationship with, Valentini, and I was lying down there, and he said, looked down at me, and he says, "Get up." And I said, well, "Where's the flowers?" Because I was dead on the floor, supposedly. I said, "Well, where are the flowers?" So little respect, I said. He says, "Get up." He says, "You're not dead." And so he pulled me up and he says, "You'll be back." So what I heard this time, I don't know if it's true, but somebody called from General Hospital to Days if I was available. And they said no.
Ah, okay.
And so the next thing I hear is Charles Shaughnessy, who's a lovely actor.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he's Victor. I mean, as far as, because he's English and he's not ethnic like we were.
Right.
But I love Charles's work. I mean, even when we did the 6-parter on Peacock, he was wonderful. He came in and he had this wonderful way about him. He made the role differently than what I did.
Right.
And but I never found him to be scary. I found him to be quite the gentleman and a lovely human being and a wonderful actor. But, Victor
scares people.
Well, oops.
I think he'll be back.
I destroyed him.
No, you have great questions, and I always wondered about that. The good news is that Thaao is up for the Mr. Sheffield role in the revival of The Nanny. I'm kidding.
We hope so.
I hope he comes back.
And while we're waiting for him, I want to thank everyone for coming and asking such great questions.
Absolutely.
I always get a kick out of the fact that so many of us remember Thaao as Victor Cassadine. And then, you know, back in the days when we had 3 channels and a knob on the TV and could watch Days, General, and 10 other soaps and kind of be up on all of them. Breaking the knob off sometimes. Anyone going to the GH fan event next weekend, or the Young and Restless, Bold and Beautiful events?
I'm in Ohio. I'm not. A little too far.
Well, yes, I understand that
Bernie,
completely.
I saw your hand raised. You going?
What?
Oh no, maybe you're just waving.
I wonder if we should. Oh, there he is. Okay, great. Here he comes. And Ashley, whichever one of us spots him first.
And let him in.
Oh, thank you.
Hello.
I love it. New background.
I can't believe, yeah, new background. The battery went out.
Been there.
Anyway, huh?
Linda, what were you in the middle of asking when
He was in the middle explaining. I was just asking how it felt to see that this kind of Greek baddie turned into Charles Shaughnessy, who was kind of the English gentleman of the Cassadine family, and I just thought it was kind of amusing. That's all.
the British side of the Cassadine?
British side, yes, which
Yes,
also
but
is
he's not-
occasionally Russian.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's different casting and who's available and what. It's the first time in my life I had been replaced. My character had been replaced, and so
If Days of Our Lives had allowed it, would have you gone back to do it?
yeah, I like that character. I think he's been all these years. I felt that he's been unresolved in many ways. That's why I liked when I first went back. It was an interesting. I loved the writing. I thought it was a wonderful introduction to the character after all these years, and I gave him a certain rhythm. And because let's face it, it was 1981.
Yep.
So you know, I was a different person then.
Right.
And how did you mature? I'm sure I'd gone to prison a few times, but you know,
Probably where you met Obrecht.
huh?
Probably where he met Obrecht in
Oh,
prison.
yeah. Oh, yes, yes. I can't believe she shot me, but anyway, you know, because I liked working with her.
Oh, Captain.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much,
Thank
Linda.
you.
Linda, thank you so much. And I think we have Stacy next.
Oh, Stacy, hi. All the way
Hey,
from
can you hear me all
Australia.
right? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
How are you going?
I'm doing well. Stacy was also with Kat in New Jersey. She came all the way from Australia to meet the DiMeras.
Well, particularly just you, really, as you're aware, but the others were like a bonus, you know.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
So have you been all right? All been good with you?
Yes, yeah, I've been immersed in this podcast thing, and listen, if I was working on days all this time, I wouldn't probably have never been able to achieve it. But so, you know, sometimes things happen and you say, okay, take advantage of that time. And so I did. And yeah, it's I'm pleased with the stories.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I was going to ask you, in New Jersey, we did have many interesting conversations, as you probably recall. I won't go into some of those. And you know what I'm talking about because you're laughing. Anyway, so I did ask you where, stop laughing, Thaao, I'm trying to concentrate.
It's part of my charm. What can I do?
Well, a bit of charm from me as well, I think. Anyway,
Hey,
moving on.
Michael's looking.
What's that?
Go ahead, sorry.
So that's okay. So I remember at dinner, I did ask you like, where's someone you would recommend a not overly big traveler like me to visit? Like if I said to you, Thaao, where's somewhere good to go? Like out of all your journeys, where would you recommend as like a first choice?
But going where?
Like on like a trip to visit something, a country. Like where's your top place to visit? Obviously Egypt, I guess, is high on
No,
your
Greece
list.
is one and Italy is another.
Okay.
Also like
Yeah.
London, but Greece and the islands and I think Athens I like, but Italy is, I mean, let's face it, they're some of the best cuisine in the world and some of the greatest art I've ever seen. It's like walking through a museum, the whole country. But you know, my favorite restaurant in if you went to into Italy in Rome would be Nino's, Ninos.
Okay. I've often thought this is like I don't know, an idea. You should have like a competition where, like, you know, people write in 25 words or less why you should take them on holiday and have like a competition. That would be fun. As long as they can pay their own way, you should do that. We would love to go on a holiday with you, you know, see some of these things in the world you've experienced. You'd be a good teacher. I mean, you are a good teacher. I just think that will be something to probably you won't never do, but that's okay. I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Oh no, that's not true. That's not true.
Okay.
That's fun. Oh my goodness.
Coming this fall to Peacock.
Oh.
Thanks so much. We'll go to Bernice.
Bernice, thank you so
Lovely,
much.
sweetie.
What is your? Oh, hi, Bernice.
She has to unmute herself.
Oh, we can't hear you, Bernice. You have to press the red mic. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Hello.
Hello, I just wanted to say I've been watching Days since 1974. And I feel like I'm part of the Salem community after such a long time. And I want to just thank you for being on there on and off, but in all those years, thank you so much because you bring a lot of class to the program and grace, and I enjoy you and your character to the nth degree.
Oh, thank you.
I'm over 80 years old and I am so
Oh.
appreciative of you and what
Oh.
you do. And I just wanted to say thank you, and it was my honor to watch this program today. And
Oh, thank
you
you.
again.
Thank you, and thank you for being there all these years. It's
All
why the
these
show has
years.
lasted is because
I'm a
of
real
the
devotee.
thank you.
believe
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
And
Well,
thank
thank
you
you.
again. You bring
Yeah.
so much to the program.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Bernice, that is a
Take care.
lovely sentiment for us to wrap up on. Thaao, I know we've kept you well over the hour you promised us.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, I broke down twice, so that was not good. But the thing is, I want to be in places where I'm comfortable. Well, I'm here at my desk, but the background's kind of blah.
No, it looks great. All right, well, listen, well, thank you very much. Maybe we could all unmute and give a round of applause to Thaao and thank him for coming. I don't know if that can be done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Thaao.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Days.